Okay, here we go. Joust is up and running and playable. Um, it is not original, and I haven't really done that much with cosmetics. This is just me getting my Jrok multi-Williams up and running in the Joust cocktail cabinet. So, just literally got this going. Here's a kind of rundown of what I've done. Here you can actually see the glow behind the plexiglass there. I have run a switching power supply, negative 5 volts, to the bulbs in the coin door and the control panels. So we've got a bulb for the coin reject and for 1 and 2 players. So they light up, and then what you can't really see is there are 2 bulbs, one here and one here, that are lighting up the Joust in the control panel there. Well, cables are a little short to pull that out, but trust me, so there's 7 bulbs being run off the negative 5 volt supply on the switcher. I put a button in the extra holes that had been drilled in the control panel, original control panels. So this one is not hooked up to anything. This one is hooked up. These are Sanwa joysticks, which I 3D printed a 2-way restrictor. So there's a little bit of horizontal movement, but it only engages the left and right micro switches. I also bought 15mm extensions for the joysticks, because otherwise the shaft is right down here, and so the ball is really low to the control panel. I haven't measured an actual Defender Stargate or Joust cocktail shaft. I don't have any. I used to have some 10 years ago, a couple extras, but I sold all my extra parts. But I'm betting they're somewhere in the middle of this. Instead of like 15mm, maybe a 7mm might be where the originals were. So it's either higher than the originals or pretty sure lower than the originals without the extension. So this is what I've got until I figure out what I'm going to do with the controls. And obviously this is using the original beat up, extra hole drilled control panel, reverse screen printed plexi. I reprinted these. These are color inkjet. You can find these online. The instruction stickers. It's running the later model monitor. It's not the original 4900 Wells Gardner. I have mounted the board to the side of the game, just so I wouldn't have to deal with the door, any wires or anything getting stuck in the door. Ground strap here that connects to the monitor frame, so the monitor is grounded to the field ground that comes in from the plug. The monitor is lined up well in the machine with the bezel. And if we take a look back here, let me actually get a flashlight. Here's what I'm talking about. I haven't done any cosmetics. This black paint is literally just like kind of rubs off on this side. It's all flaking. So I've cleaned up as much of the sticker, gum, all that kind of thing, but I still have, you might see there, extra holes from the extra lock bar. Paint chips and scratches and all that I haven't done anything with. And then inside, here's the business end. I made my own metal plate, spray painted black, for the switch. Switch has a varistor on it in case of a power surge. It goes to this board that I made that is not the original dimensions. The original dimension boards, they were longer, but it is using, you can't really see them, but it is using 3 original mounting hole spots. There's one there, and then there's 2 others that hold that board in place. Switching power supply, JAMMA harness, a little distribution block where the -5 volt comes in, and then I have wire pairs with -5 volt and ground going to each of the control panels and to the coin door. So I can either get 5 volt bulbs as opposed to the 6.3 volt bulbs that I'm running now that are a bit dim, or I could get LEDs, or I could maybe hook 12 volts up to that and run 12 volt bulbs. I haven't decided what to do about that. And then we've got a transformer that is connected to the monitor, and then we've got our later model monitor in there. And I didn't go hog wild with the wires. Everything's in there, but I left extra length on the JAMMA harness, thinking at some point somebody, me or somebody else, if I sell this thing, might want to put it back to original. So I didn't bother trimming the JAMMA harness to the exact lengths that it needed to be. You can also see leading up to the control panels, I have some extra wires there. So that would be left and right, or I mean up and down, and the extra buttons 1 and 2, and maybe 4, because this Jrok board uses button 3 for flap in Joust, and left and right for the joystick, and then power to light the bulbs. That's all that goes to the control panel. So I've got extra wire looped there. There's where my Jrok board is mounted. I do not have a volume knob in the cabinet. It didn't come with an original Williams volume knob, so the only way to change the volume is the blue. You can see there's a blue potentiometer on the Jrok board, so that's the volume control, just with a flat blade screwdriver. This monitor does have a remote board for adjusting the picture, and what I've done with that is routed it there in the coin door, so you can change the horizontal, vertical size and position, as well as brightness and contrast there. I have the 1 and 2 player start buttons wired up to the coin door connector. I have the coin switch is wired up also to the coin door, even though the Jrok is on free play. So this was my main goal. I've got kind of a mess. We have some plumbing issues going on, so a bunch of stuff in the closet where the crawl space access is now in this room, making it a huge mess. So I kind of wanted to get this game at least up and running before I figure out what else I'm going to do with it. As far as, am I going to contact this old game and order some new control panel pieces? Am I going to take it outside and do a sand and paint on the black parts? How I'm going to fill the extra screw holes I showed down there in the laminate. The laminate's coming off at the bottom because all the original feet had broken off, but I don't really want to redo all of the laminate. So yeah, I'm just right now in the let's get it running and then think about it later what the end goal is. This is I guess the mid goal, to actually get this Joust cocktail looking as much like a Joust cocktail as I could, which I think that's, I mean, pretty good compared to the first video where there was nothing Joust left. The control panels were just covered with the black textured vinyl, and the player 1 and 2 start was black textured vinyl. There were no instruction cards, and it was super filthy. So it's been cleaned, it's been turned back at least into a, visible, hey, that's a Joust cocktail, instead of, that's a weird looking cocktail, what is it? Even though, extra holes, wrong joysticks, etc., etc. So, long story, trying to be as short as possible here. It is up and running as of tonight. I had a couple wiring issues that I had to correct. I put button 1 wired to the flap buttons, so neither of the flap buttons worked, so I had to re-look at the Jrok documentation where it says that it uses player 1 and player 2 button 3 for flap, so wired both buttons up to player 3. That took care of that. I had no audio. It's because there were 4 wires all tied together that originally went to the audio before I cut them out, and when I put them together, the 2 pins that I thought were speaker plus and minus were actually on the JAMMA harness. It's like a fully loaded JAMMA harness. They're not normally used for JAMMA, but they're next to the speaker, positive and negative, so I just had 2 wrong wires going to the speakers, so quickly found that and connected the right speaker plus and minus, and now both speakers, there's one for each player in a grill facing the player, so got that up and going. And I thought returning to the main Jrok menu wasn't working, but if you press player 1 and then player 2 and hold it, okay, I still might have an issue there. Just holding player 1 and 2 for 4 seconds should take it back to the menu. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure if that's because I'm not hitting them both at the same time or what. That might just be user error, or I might have a dirty switch. I'll have to put it into test mode, switch test mode, and hit the player 1 and 2 switches a few times to see if maybe one of those micro switches needs some extra cleaning or something. But yeah, fully working, well, at least for Joust. You're not going to be able to play much of any of the other games with this layout, but that's fine. All I was interested in Joust. I can make it simply boot up into Joust, which I will probably do so it doesn't come up in this menu and make you select it, since that's all that this cabinet's going to be able to play. But there we go, up and running. Again, I'm missing 2 of these brackets that go on this piece of wood, and then the 2 metal bits that slide up and down that caused this door to open and close because they were removed when I got it, and it just has screws in the right and left sides to keep the back panel closed. So you can do it without having to open the top to access those metal bars that you pull up on both sides to have the door open. As well as missing the cocktail sticks and shafts. So there we go. Yeah, pretty pleased that oh, that's right. Hit start. It's been so long since I've had my multi-Williams actually running in a cabinet. I forget what buttons to use. It's just so nice to get this back, at least playing Joust. As far as the carnage, it's really weird. The pictures of the auction showed the game running. This was the power supply that was in the game. And when I tried to get it running with this, I mounted it to my wood board with all my power wiring, and it wasn't getting any voltage out. AC was going in, but nothing was coming out, so it seems that the switcher is somehow dead. But also, the auction picture showed the game running on the monitor, and like I showed, the monitor chassis had fallen to the bottom of the cab and knocked the neck board off of the tube, so yeah, I don't know. So it looks like this is going to go in the garbage. I have several used switching power supplies apart from the one that I put in there. I probably have 3 or 4 more. And over there is the Nintendo transformer. It doesn't have the actual Nintendo switching power supply on the other side of that board that it should. It's just the transformer, and there's the wall outlet that powers the Nintendo monitor. I've got 2 Nintendo joysticks that are rebuilt that I need to list for sale on Club, along with 3 Nintendo button holders. I've also got that Versus Unisystem manual that was in the cab that I don't need. And I already sold the Atari Tetris PCB that was in the cab with really, really low audio. You could only hear if you cranked the volume up to max. That turned out to just need a recap of the Atari Tetris board, and then I sold that on eBay and recouped over half the price that I paid for this entire cabinet. So that's it for this update. It's a playable Joust again, so success there.